Okay, so I think we're ready to start, yes. Right, so welcome everybody. My name is Paloma Alvarez Suarez, and I'm very pleased to co-host today the very first event of the 6Cs initiative, which is a collaboration between the Trend Lab of Professor Ali Javaid and the PhD Student Council from the Nensky Institute of Experimental Biology here in Warsaw. This initiative aims to create a forum for mentorship and integration for young researchers through different activities that promote the so-called 6Cs, so curiosity, compassion, communication, credibility, creativity, and collaboration. And we decided to dedicate this very first event to stress-related mental health, because we all probably are aware that the pandemic has been particularly hard on us in this sense. But even before, mental health has been an issue for many people working in STEM fields. However, because scientists love some good hard data, I think we could start by very briefly mentioning some interesting evidence that summarizes the current knowledge about mental health in academia. Okay, so for example, in 2019 Nature's PhD survey, 36% of the participants said that they had looked for help due to anxiety or depression-like symptoms throughout their career. And a study from 2018 published in Nature Biotechnology showed that particularly graduate students are more than 6 times as likely to experience depression and anxiety when compared to the general population. Among them, transgender or gender non-conforming and female graduate students were 10 to 20% more likely to experience these symptoms than the rest of the students. And in this same study, more than 50% of the students that were experiencing anxiety and depression considered that their work-life balance was not healthy, and they didn't think that they had a supportive and positive mentoring relationship with their PIs or advisors. However, it seems that not only the students suffer, as the prevalence of mental health problems among academic staff, so people at any career stage, in several UK universities was found to be as high as 53%. Then the Guardian survey in 2014, which specifically targeted those academics, so again, at every stage of their career, that were suffering mental health problems, revealed that more than 33% who had informed of their mental health struggles to their senior managers never received any emotional or practical help. So I believe that with this very brief information, it's clear that the problem is still there and that it's more common than we think. And now with this being said, I think it's time to introduce our guests today. So Ali, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paloma, for highlighting the importance of stress relaxation in academia. And as you very rightly concluded, that the problem is very much there. And I think what we need is to raise awareness about it and also to find solutions for it. And through this little initiative here, that's what we are trying to do. So we have tried our level best to put together a panel of experts who will cover all the different domains related to stress. A scientist or an academician could come across, including problems related to work and leadership, including like psychology of motivation, how to deal with failures, and of course, like the lifestyle modifications. So I'm very pleased to introduce our distinguished guests, starting with Paulina Danielak, who is.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Paulina, for joining. So Paulina is a cognitive psychologist. She is also an expert in a special kind of therapy. It has more to do with acceptance and adaptation. At the same time, she's a sports psychologist. So she is actually dealing with a lot of different situations, which people in a competitive field are regularly tackling with. So thanks a lot, Paulina, for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
we
Thank
look
you for
forward
inviting me.
to hear your insight. Moving on, we also have Walid Ghazzo, and he is not only has been a great friend, but also like someone with a lot of innovation and potential as a leadership coach. And through his company, they introduced a method of incorporating culture and personality analytics to improve teams' performances. So, Walid, we really look forward to your insight about how we can improve the workplace environment for academicians and how they themselves can coach to tackle all these different issues as well.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Dr. Sana Umar Askari. She's a medical doctor. She's also a healthcare manager. And like, you know, what is really fascinating is that she is the co-founder of this initiative called the Norn Way. And it's all about finding like, you know, holistic methods and lifestyle modifications to improve physical and mental well-being. So it's an overarching field in which you combine like, you know, mental health as well as physical health, and which in most cases go hand in hand. So thanks a lot, Sana, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I would start with like a question which, you know, I myself have wondered about a lot, and there is a lot of scientific evidence also in support of that. In fact, like one of like, you know, a very pioneering scientists who discovered like, you know, all the different endocrine abnormalities which can happen after stressful conditions, made this statement that it is not the stress which kills us, it's how we react to it. So I will start with that question, and I would like to hear insight from all of you. Do you think stress can actually be good? And is it only how we react to it which is problematic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Starting with you, Paulina.
Well, sorry for this quick start. Yeah, I think it is. It's really important to feel stress, but you know, it's not the situation. It's how we perceived the situation. It's that the point we feel stressed. Because if we feel that we can cope with the situation, we have enough resources, then the level of the stress might be lower or medium. But you know, if we feel that we don't have the ability, we don't have the resources, we don't have the knowledge, we don't know what to do, then the level of our stress might be really, really high. And of course, it can cause many, many like danger even to our body. So it depends how we perceive the situation, because two people in the same situation can feel totally different. One can be like relaxed. Oh, before the exam, yeah, there are lots of students. One is like, okay, maybe I'll pass, maybe I won't, doesn't matter. And one will be super stressed, yeah, and he'll be like, oh, the high tension in his body. So it depends how we feel about this situation and how we can cope. Like if we have the knowledge, if we have the resources that we can use in the situation, that's really, really important. That's the difference here.
Excellent. So what you're saying is that it is the stress of having stress, right, which is eventually problem.
Yeah, like
stress becomes a problem when you can't cope with it anymore.
Yeah, for example, like the exam, it's like the neutral situation because it's just the exam, but we have the thoughts, yeah, we have the feelings, and we have the behaviors. So if I perceive this exam as something really, really stressful for me, that maybe I can barely cope with, then I will be really, really stressed in this situation. So, okay, let people know their resources, like give them the knowledge, yeah, and I think that's what we are doing here right now. Yeah,
I agree with Dr. Paulina, and I would just like to add that stress is perceived as a negative emotion, and of course, at most points in our life, it can become, like she's saying, the way we perceive it. So it's really our relationship. I would like to define stress a little bit deeper and say that I did a bit of research and I came across a really interesting definition, which is stress is nothing but it's information and it's energy that you your mind holds, and that needs to be fueled into some sort of change. Now, in order to cope with stress, you have to integrate stress coping mechanisms, skills, and tools, which you can do by educating yourself, through counseling, through coaches, mentors, reading up about it. But it's your relationship with stress. You can have a negative relationship and a positive relationship, but from an evolutionary purpose, and it's a scientifically proven, evident fact that small amounts of stress are actually good for us humans because it primes us to perform to an optimal functioning. And if we don't have, an optimal functioning, then we just tend to get, depressed or feel low about ourselves. So human beings and as species, we need stress to trigger excitement, motivation, face challenges and threats. So it's really about perception and developing and translating your relationship with stress onto a positive path, and you can deal with it.
How we dynamically adapt to it. So Walid, what do you think?
Well, I think, in general, when you think about stress, like everything which is, when you put stress into an environment, especially when you look at the group dynamics, which is what I'm doing, observing, is that when you want to trigger change, you need to put stress into the organism or into the group. And this creates a dynamic environment. Like Dr. Sana already mentioned, it's the amount which is, and this is something you need to find out. It's very individual, how much stress you can handle and not. It's up to you to decide, and it's very individual.
Yeah, it's like a feedback, from our body. So something's happening. Take action.
Agreed. It varies and it is also a gap between demand and capacity. And for every individual, it varies. Some individuals, like Dr. Paulina said, when you're faced with the challenge of an exam or passing a test, it's really the lacking between demand and capacity and how you're managing different things in your life. But it's something that you can definitely develop a positive relationship with and work towards.
Yeah.
Over to you, Paloma.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think I have in mind all the time these two terms I learned a while ago that are distress and eustress. So I think we're basically discussing about this difference, right? So yeah, in my own experience, that's stress has been good sometimes, and depending on my attitude towards it, has been not very good in others. So fully agree. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can move on, and I would like to know, based on your field of expertise, what are the most common mistakes that people make when approaching stress management? Whoever, how about Paulina maybe, or Sana? Yes.
I think one of the most common, there are two common mistakes that people make. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the relationship that you develop with stress. And that's something you have to be very mindful of. And you have to kind of keep re-examining yourself and your stressors. But there are two common mistakes. One is a kind of individual who, and I'm talking about people who tend to get very deeply stressed out. So these are specifically those individuals. One are the ones that go in complete denial, or they'll block it out and they'll retract from the situation. They won't address it. And what that does is that you go into a state of denial and you block it out, but your mind, it's still there in your mind and it just builds up. And then it turns into an overwhelming kind of stress that can cause you severe mental disorders like depression, anxiety, panic attacks. And there's another form of taking to stress, managing stress, which is a destructive form of stress. And that is to cope with it through ways that temporarily give you a relief, a respite from it, through engaging in patterns that are not good for you and habits that are not good for you. And, stress is a very strong susceptibility towards addictions as well. A lot of, graduates, you were mentioning about 50% of graduates in one of your stats struggle with stress and anxiety and depression. And you'll find that a lot of graduates, they do struggle with addictions or an overwhelming tendency to do that. And that is because they're not, it's not just for graduates, it would be for any teenager, anybody who's not well equipped to manage stress can be prone towards going on the wrong patterns and developing habits and mechanisms that will be destructive for them. So I think these are the two wrong ways, don'ts. You have to have the right coaching, the right mentoring, the right kind of support system to develop these skills and tools, and you have to educate yourself. And I do feel that, I'm hoping that in schools and colleges, and especially primary schools, in my country at least, we're pushing for this, that we can talk about stress management from a very early age, and we can talk to students and children about what it is, what it feels like, and how to, so they're better equipped to deal with it at a later stage of life.
Yeah, that's true. And I totally agree. And in my field, it all comes down to the question, how to avoid stress, how to like get rid of the stress at all. Like no stress in my life. No. And impossible. You can't get rid of the stress at all. It will be maladaptive. It will be like useless for you, because how would you know then what's happening? How would you be able to act, to react to what's happening? Like, for example, you have a job and it's really, really bad job. For example, your boss is screaming at you, calling your names, and you're like, oh, yeah, hey, you're not feeling like any type of arousal. That's what's happening here. How would you know that something is wrong? That, okay, like you need to feel the stress. It's really important. And also the high levels of stress are also very, very important, because it like the flight or fight response. Yeah, you have to like our body needs to know how to react. Yeah, so of course people want like have this illusion. Yeah, no stress in my life at all. Yeah, only happy days. But it's impossible. Like even like if we use the metaphor of rain, everyone loves sunny warm days. That's the best. And we love such weather, like no clouds, only sun. But imagine how long it would take nature to become a desert with no rainy days, with no bad weather, yeah, only dry soil. And that's the same what's happening inside us. If we won't feel any of the hard to feel emotions, only happiness, how would we know what's going on like, in our life? That's why it's really, really important to feel the whole range of emotion, because it's human, it's normal. So normalize it.
Walid?
I think one major learning for myself, and I grew up in a civil war in Lebanon, just to emphasize this and the context. Um, stress and making mistakes about stress is basically, for me, is the biggest learning was actually that I needed to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So if you can do that in a way by observing yourself, by finding out what triggers stress in yourself, I think this is half of the job. The other thing is that you need to really start removing negativity and distractions. All these, I stopped all these social media notifications because on my personal level, it caused a lot of stress, because I started comparing myself with people and all this. And the day I stopped with it, I actually really felt more quality in my health and also in my mental health. And so this is one major step. And the last one, maybe, which I also think is a big mistake, is that when you realize you have stress and you want to change it, or you want to change habits, is that most people give up very early, simply because they put too much habits to change on the list. So the key goal is to start very, very slow and simple, and then progress over the time.
Baby steps.
Yes.
That's a great advice.
Yeah.
Yes, not to try to achieve all of it at in the same month, right?
Because it will be stressful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Precisely.
Absolutely right. So I guess the take-home message, which I gathered from all of you, is that when you deal with a stressful situation, it's about embracing it rather than trying to avoid it, and learning how to cope with it in healthy ways and at your own pace.
Yeah.
I think that perhaps is the collective summary for it. I will ask the next question to you, Paulina, because I think you're dealing with also sports personnel who are dealing with we're tackling a lot of stress. And then also it's very similar to academia, because academia is also very competitive. And, we actually see that, especially a lot of young academicians, like, a fresh PhD student or a master's student, they all come with a motivation to, change the world, win the Nobel Prize, like all of that. And then we see that then at some point the reality starts to kick in. And then, like, there could be some sort of discrepancies in what you initially thought you would achieve to what you're actually able to achieve. So, how does one deal with maintaining motivation without giving yourself too much stress, and also maintaining it in realistic ways?
Yeah, when we talking about the goals, yeah, achieving goals in academia, it's really important to stay connected with your values. Values are very important in the motivation field. And staying focused on what's happening now, being in this present moment. Because mostly what we do, we really focus on achieving goal. Yeah, we should be the best, we should have the best marks, yeah, everything's the best. We should achieve our goal quickly, now, yeah, repeatedly. And we miss a lot in the way because we are only focused on the goals, our to-do list. Yeah, the next one. And the life we miss is just next to us, but it's passing by because we are focused on just one part of our life. And what is helpful here is to focus on your values that are like something more than just goals, because the goal might be, yeah, I want to, I don't know, become a PhD, yeah, or something. It's a really, really long term, for example, goal. But my values are, for example, during this way, being open, working on my empathy, and what else? Being conscious for what's happening in my life, being like grateful, and those values, they make me able to feel what I want to feel, like every day, like in this moment, not just when I will achieve the goal in like future. And values, being connected to your values is really important in all fields of your life. So get to know your values, what's valuable for you, what's important for me, and why I'm doing it. It's not just a goal, it's all the things that are deeper, that are more important for me. It's not just doing stuff in my life, like the robot. Yeah, I have other things going on. And being conscious, being like training mindfulness skills, it's also really, really important. Like being open, being in the connection with your close ones, with other students. Like we forget during pandemic how important is the social communications, how it's important the social support. It's really, really big part of our health and also for our mental health. So being focused, if we are setting goals, setting flexible goals. So breaking it down to the baby steps, like what can I do step by step, like really small steps. And that's the point of breaking down the big goal. It's really hard for example, for my clients. They are setting like the small step will be like, oh, I will exercise twice a day every day. It's really a big goal. So like the really small step is, for example, hey, I will drink a glass of water in the morning. Yeah, it's a big step for me. So setting flexible goals, also focusing on the way to achieving the goal, not only the goal. Taking care of myself during this way, what I can learn, what are the abilities in this way toward this goal, but really being connected with what's important for me. what are the values, people that are important for me, and living your life now in this time, because it's the only time that it's real, that is now, like, for living the life you want to live. Because okay, we can imagine future, but now is the time you can truly act, be in commitment, and live your life how you want to live. So being focused on present, being connected to your values, knowing what's important for you. Yeah, and that's I think that's the main point of the setting goals, being motivated, and also building up your flexibility in achieving goals.
Yeah, that's really good advice and definitely taking in that. And I
you.
will also remember about the sharing that experience with others, maybe from outside of academia, right? However, one of the things, and I'm sure that other scientists will agree with me, one of the things that ruins the motivation the most for me is when repeatedly, for example, in my case, my experiments fail. So I am constantly struggling for the, let's say, small goal of getting this experiment done. And somehow I can't. So it keeps failing. And, my motivation definitely goes down. So how would you advise to deal with these particular repeated failures that we all experience very often?
Yeah, so again, back to the basics. So if
Mhm.
the goal is truly flexible, the failure, the perceived failure is not so like the big thing. Because for the failure, yeah, for the perspective of failure, we need to focus on our goal. I failed. It's the way we talk to ourselves. It's the way we set our goals. So only I will be like, I will achieve this goal only in this one point. And in the flexible setting, we said, okay, here, 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 here is good, is enough. Here I'm also achieving something. What maybe I'm achieving being connected to my value about being open. And maybe I'm talking to my friends of what's like happening now. I failed my exam, for example. I still I'm able to be open and ask my friends, for example, okay, I have such, like, I don't know, I have this situation and this and it's going on, and I feel really bad. I need your support. And maybe you can tell me, maybe we can speak what I can change in my approach to those, like, I don't know, learning to exam. And this, like, I can be open, I can still use my values, and I didn't fail because I was open. I asked my friends. Maybe we evaluate my goals. We find other solutions. And that's the point. Yeah. We see the failure if we like stand in the perspective of the failure. But if we see other possibilities, if our goal is flexible, so hey, I'm still open towards people. I'm still, for example, commitment to my close ones, to my self-care, then I'm not failing.
And you're also learning in the process, right? Of the
Yes,
whole
yes,
failure. Mhm.
yeah, you're learning new skills. Yeah, that's very important.
And I would just like to interject that, in experimental fields in science, for example, you could always have sub goals, behind your main goal. Okay, you eventually didn't get the result which you wanted, but you mastered a new technique along the way, and that is one way in which it will actually not be a failure because you achieved some part of your overall goal. So thanks a lot for actually breaking it down for us, Paulina. But
Yeah.
what I gather from this is that it seems to involve a lot of, self-empowering and self-enabling and self-coaching, in which you learn how to stay motivated, how to create these sub goals, how to have strong values, which actually now brings me to you, Walid, because do you think we can coach ourselves in a way that we have values and goals, but they are realistic? And if we don't achieve them, we don't feel the guilt. And if they are, let's say, too far reaching, then we don't get like stressed in the process. Can we learn how to do that?
Yes, I think, absolutely. I mean, one thing is by educating yourself. I mean, this could be reading books or even doing sports is really, really one of the things which helps you to understand yourself because it gives you balance. The other thing, and this is like more like a powerful tool you can use, is involve your network. Actually, you need to have accountability partners if you want to coach yourself, because coming back to the stress in the beginning, this creates some sort of positive stress on you so that you keep telling yourself, I need to move. It also helps you to recognize and accept the need of change. So you could do this by setting small goals, developing small habits. What I do is, for example, in my coachings, I teach people to create a so-called habit map, and which helps you to implement the good habits and disconnect the bad habits. And it's also very, very important to really track the habits and visualize the efforts and success. For example, there was a hospital in Norway. They did an experiment on this, and I found this profoundly interesting when it comes to visualizing things. So they were putting the sanitizers in front of the patient's doors because of the pandemic, right? And after 2 weeks, they realized no one was sanitizing her hands. And then they asked themselves, like, why is this not happening at all? And then they hired a psychologist, and they did a very simple thing. They placed an iPad next to the door handle where you can just tick a checkbox once you sanitize your hand, right? So what happened is it had the effect on other nurses, which saw that my colleague sanitized her hands, I will do it as well. And then they saw it became like an engagement, like a competition, right? So they get fired up. And what I'm trying to tell you is make your success visible to yourself, because it's really, really important. It keeps you motivated, it keeps you focused. If you don't see it, what you're doing, of course you will stop because you don't see any success or result. So self-coaching, of course, it is possible. And also, to give you some inspiration, what I'm trying to do is I have on my mirror in the morning when I see myself the first time, there's one sentence which is saying, when was the last time you did something for the first time, right? So just to think about yourself, like, what can I do today which I haven't done before? For example, drink 2 cups of waters in the morning, or brush your teeth with the left hand. So, this way you get very, very simple steps of how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think this is a very, very important start if you really want to take it serious of self-coaching, because it all begins with small steps.
Yeah, that's some good advice. I'm totally, yeah, sorry.
That's really good advice. That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, might also put it into practice very soon. This habit map, I really like the idea.
But you said try brushing your teeth with the left hand, so that's.
Well, I wouldn't take a selfie after that, but definitely it is, you can feel like.
It sounds exciting and something fun, I like that advice.
You can do it very simple. Like, do you know how change feels to yourself in a very, very pragmatic way? You can actually do it by putting your hands, the 2 hands together, and you can fold them together. And everybody has a standard way of, getting comfortable with this. Now, try to do this and just change the order of thumbs, okay? But do it from the start and do it on purpose. And you will realize it feels uncomfortable, right? Very simple trick. And now, one question: who has the left thumb on top of it?
Well, I haven't even tried it, so.
But if you have if you have the right hand on top of it, it means that your brain cells are more connected. That was a small study, but it's really interesting to to visualize how changes feel. And there's a lot of tools, and I think you can read books about it, but it's really, really powerful. If you want to get if you want to coach yourself, I would really recommend you to dig into some books. There are some quite good books about it.
Yeah, also from the audience, somebody is asking if you could elaborate a little bit more about this habit map tool that you were mentioning.
Exactly.
How to make it, maybe, or if you could give us some details about it.
Okay. I'll give you an example. I'm a smoker and I drink coffee. And I'm embarrassed by myself sometimes when I see how much coffee I was drinking or how much cigarettes I was smoking. And then I started to think about my own habits of how can I stop smoking or stop drinking coffee so much. And then I just observed myself, right? So I just wrote down literally every day how much coffee I was drinking, how many cups, how many cigarettes I was smoking, the time. And I realized just by observing this, that when I was smoking, when I was having a coffee, I was always smoking, which led me to the knowledge that I actually have two habits connected to each other, right? So they emphasize each other. So what I started doing is I started disconnecting them. So whenever I went for a coffee, I did not smoke. And whenever I was smoking, I did not have a coffee. And this way I started to isolate because, it's all in the brain happening. It's all about habits. So what's happening is actually that in your subconscious mind, there is this program running which tells you coffee equals cigarette, right? And you need to quit this connection. But when it comes to create a habit map, what I do basically in a very simple way is you just create a list of bad habits and good habits, and you try to not exchange bad habits with good habits at the same time, but try to remove one habit first. And once you feel comfortable with it, and you made it for 1 week without smoking cigarette or whatever, then start with actually implementing a good habit, because the body and the mind and your subconscious mind needs a long time to process it and to really make it a routine. So this is how you can actually break things down. And really what is very, very powerful, I mean, and this is like what my company is doing, like based on data, you need to make a list of data of what are your habits, when, how, why. Ask yourself all this question, but don't go crazy. I mean, don't overthink it. Just keep it simple. And you will learn a lot about yourself if you just do this for 1 day. Just write down 1 day what kind of habits you have. Like you wake up in the morning, you drink your coffee, you brush your teeth. I'm sure you will have like 50, 60 things in the day. And then try to find the bad apples and identify them, and then start small. It sounds harder than it is. But if you just put some efforts in it and try to understand yourself, you will get comfortable with it. And believe me, after 4 weeks, you will change.
Amazing.
So that's great. So it seems that it's all about visualization and self-awareness, right? So talking about this self-coaching, Sana, do you think, in terms of the diet habits as well, that they can have an impact on our stress responses? Like, do you think there are like do's and don'ts in diet habits that can affect our stress management skills?
Absolutely, absolutely. Stress can definitely have, too much stress and an overwhelming stress. And if you haven't managed to cope with your stress in a constructive, positive way, it can have a very negative effect on your body. And stress is also related very closely to our dietary habits, our nutrition. And there is a very proverbial saying, which is, we are what we eat. And I'm a strong believer of that because you have to I want to start from the point where we tackle with stress. In order to tackle and cope and manage stress, the most important thing in my experience and the advice that I can give is that you have to become really mindful of what's triggering your stress and the different stressors that are affecting you and bringing that overwhelming feeling. And a lot of times, and I know that a lot of us do it, almost everyone does it, either you have someone who's an emotional eater. When they're stressed out, they eat a lot. And I know a lot of my friends, they tell me that, we're stressed out. Gosh, we're like eating a lot of junk food. We're ordering in takeaways. And then you have people like me, myself, who are, starvers. When I'm under stress, my metabolic, sort of metabolism just goes down and I stop eating altogether. And both these things can be very bad for you because at all times our body needs the right kind of nutrients and an adequate amount of nutrients to stay healthy. And there's research and data that there are actually brain boosting diets. So the diet that you consume can affect the structure and the cognitive functioning of your brain. So it's very important to be mindful of what you're eating. And if you really want to manage stress in your life and develop an overall healthy way of living for your mental well-being, emotional well-being, even for your spiritual well-being, it's absolutely crucial and critical that you incorporate a good balanced diet and you are mindful of what you're consuming. So when you're going to the grocery store, you actually make the effort of picking up the product and reading the ingredients, what is put into it. When you're preparing yourself a meal, you become mindful of what it is that you're putting in your body. And high saturated fats, junk food, what is mainly the components of it are high saturated fats and sugar. They're very bad for our brain. They can disrupt the mood regulation. They can disrupt our sleep, the cortisol levels. So diet is very important, and we must become very mindful if you want to live a healthy way. And we have to focus on, if you're an academic, for example, if you're an academic, or if you are even an athlete, or even for someone like me who's working from home, is a mother, anybody who wants to achieve a healthy lifestyle, it's important that you also shift from eating balanced, good diet to having and focusing on a brain boosting diet. So simple examples that I can give right now, think of, are omega-3 fatty acids. You can find them in fish, salmon, mackerel, nuts. They have a lot of minerals. Dark chocolate. If you're seeking for comfort food, instead of having a tub of ice cream, you can maybe replace it with dark chocolate. It's known to have some really amazing antioxidants that neutralize free radicals in our body. Fruits, green vegetables. Chamomile tea is supposed to be very calming, very therapeutic. It's anti-inflammatory. So it's very important to, I think more than ever now in a world of pandemic and what we're faced with, and how disruptive all our lives have been, it's important to look after our mental and emotional health. And it's also important to shift our focus from eating well to eating a brain boosting diet.
Excellent. That's a very, very helpful advice, Sana. Would you like to also quickly comment on exercise, and then I would move on to our next question?
Well, I think, I can't emphasize, and you guys are all like, such high achieving individuals, and everybody knows that exercise is absolutely critical to one's wellness and overall wellness. And it's not just something that will make you look good and give you a six pack and, make you feel good on the outside, but it's also something that'll make you feel good on the inside. And I know a lot of times people focus on exercise as a way to look good. But really, I think, again, here comes the whole concept of being mindful about your overall health. And if you really want to be a truly healthy individual, you will focus on inner health, and that will transcend to your outer health. So exercise is absolutely critical. It releases feel-good hormones, endorphins and enkephalins. It regulates our mood, our sleep, our blood sugar levels. It's really good to protect against heart diseases, rheumatic diseases. I mean, I can't emphasize enough on the importance of it. And if you have a really stressful life, I mean, when I began exercising and when I started taking exercise very seriously, and I just want to put in this experience briefly, that I thought that, it's impossible for me because I'm a mother. I was also a student at the time. And I was trying to create something of my own for work from home. And amongst all of this, to take time out for myself seemed almost impossible. But then there came a time when I realized that that's not true at all, and it is possible. And the way to do it, even if you're a high pressure individual, if you're a PhD student, if you have a high pressure job, is just to manage your time. Time management is absolutely critical. And like, Dr. Walid said, that I believe in the power of journaling. He brought up a really good point. I journal a lot. It really is very therapeutic. I think it's absolutely instrumental that we put down our feelings, our thoughts, our goals. And for every individual, if you want to be successful at anything, you have to have a schedule, and you just don't make it and put it in your diary, but you actually respect it and you follow it, and you'll be able to squeeze in whatever it is that you like to do for your well-being.
Amazing. So it seems like everything is all connected, right? Like this habit map and journaling and finding time for exercise and being mindful of how to cope. I mean, all of this seems to be coming together. Now, we focused a lot on how to cope with stress in healthy ways and how to overall improve physical and mental well-being. But sometimes, despite all the efforts, stress starts taking its toll. And burnout, also if you look into the stats of it, it is very, very, very common in academics. I mean, also in other high stressful jobs, but uniquely common in academics. And at that stage, when you get the burnout, of course, I think some of these things will also start to become a little less effective. You know? When you are burned out, you're practically in a state of depression, and then finding yourself, the motivation to have a healthy diet or being mindful, I think all of that becomes like a lot more challenging. So what to do when already someone is having a burnout? This is especially for you, Paulina, this question.
Yeah, please don't wait till this moment. Yeah. So if I would like tell you something, then let's start from today. Exercising. You can try yoga, tai chi. Dr. Sanas told about the exercising. Journaling. Yeah. Gratitude journaling. Write down what are you gratitude for. It's really important to start from now. Don't wait till the moment you are totally burned out. You are totally in depression, have those like really severe state. So step by step, if you feel that you are in the situation that it's really, really bad, you feel like, oh, I have no ability to do anything else. Yeah, now. So first, if you feel like you should visit, like see the specialist. Yeah, it's normal. It's totally normal to go see, I don't know, psychologist, psychiatrist, psychotherapist, or even like just someone, yeah, who can help you, who can give you this, special, yeah, who can give you those like things that you need, yeah, in this situation. So don't wait till the moment you are not able to do anything. But if you are in this state, go see someone. It's really important. It's like totally normal. Everyone can go and visit the specialist. It doesn't mean it's a failure. Yeah, we talk about the failure. It's normal. It's very important. And if you are in this state, what you can do, you can also, because you'll be doing it, like I'm doing it in the therapy, like in the first stage of the therapy, you identify what's going on, yeah, what's happening. So just also Dr. San told about this. You can write down, yeah, the thoughts you have, the feelings you have, and the behaviors that you're acting. So identify what's going on in this vicious cycle of the stress. It's really important because you know what's going on. In your thoughts, you can write all the like really, really negative thoughts that's coming up to your mind. Write everything like, oh, there's too much to do. I'm not able to do anything. No, there's nothing, there's not like, I don't know, enough time to do anything. I'm stupid. Yeah, sometimes it's really hard. And write it down, see what's happening, write your feelings. Like, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling tense, I have headaches. Yeah, what's happening in your body also. I have problems with my indigestion. I have difficulty like concentrating. I have some memory impairment, or I'm forgetful. Yeah, that's what stress causing. And behaviors, how you act in the stressful situations. So what are those stressful situations? For example, exams. Yeah. For example, talking with people. Yeah. Social anxiety. Everything that causes you stress, write it down, and how you behave in the situation to see, identify how you coping with the stress. For example, oh, you are like, I don't know, working more or less. You are avoiding like talking to people. You have problems with your sleep. You're not eating, you're overeating. Yeah, so write down everything and see, identify those things, and then look for the resolution. Like, what solution, what can you do in those situation? For example, maybe like how to break this vicious cycle in all those points. Maybe in the, I don't know, level of your behaviors. What else can you do? How differently you can react or behave? Yeah, you can ask your, like for example, friend. Yeah, what would you do in my situation? How you are coping with stress? Yeah, And also I can, I don't know, like look for the inspiration online. Yeah, some, I don't know, new stuff I can do. And I get inspired of the things to do. And like answer yourself a question. For example, what I'm reacting to. What is this thing that's happening here? Why? What's important in this situation for me? Why it's so important for me? Or is it worth it? Is it useful for me? Those thoughts, those behaviors. So identify those things, like really, really small step. Ask someone for help, yeah. Or
Paulina,
write to your friend. Yeah,
yeah,
I have a hard time.
we just lost you in the
Sorry?
last. In the
Yeah.
last seconds, we couldn't hear you that well. So maybe you could just repeat the gist of it, the last part.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, is it good? No?
Yeah, it's perfect now, but could you just repeat the last few seconds, the last 30 seconds or so?
Oh,
The conclusion.
yeah. So look for the solutions to those to what you are in, and what's happening in this vicious cycle. But it's really important to identify the things, because then you're conscious. Yeah, you know what's happening, and you can broaden your perspective. Ask someone or think of, oh, how my friend will act in this situation. What can you do?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Excellent. So I think,
Some problems, or is it working, or there was some problems?
now it's okay, but I think we so like like the take home message is that of course like being aware, look for resources, and
Yeah.
like don't wait until you're really like let's say down in the rabbit hole before you consult a specialist. I think it's important to seek like early intervention and find like different ways to approach.
Yeah, and because like, we can think of our mind like in this metaphor as our muscles, and if we want our muscles to be strong, we go, like, for example, few times a week to the gym. We're training, maybe not to gym right now, but we're training, yeah, a few times a week, or we are even training every day, for example, yoga. And it's the same with our mind. If we want to have the strong ability to cope with the stress, then we have to train every day. If we are training every day, we are prepared for the stressful situations, not only coping with the stress in the exact stressful, like super stressful situation. Yeah. So like prepare yourself. And it's not only for being able to cope with the stress, but it's also giving you like the consciousness of what's happening in your life, the ability to feel better with your body, because it's, yeah, you let your body move and you're releasing the tension, and it's good, it's just good to train every day.
that's pretty nice. And I also think this thing you mentioned, that it's all about baby steps, right? Like small
Yeah.
things that are not maybe necessarily like very huge goals, but as one of the participants is telling us that for example, for her, the connection with nature and going outside is already a huge
Yes.
relief from the stress. So, and that might be considered like something very small, but it's just a walk,
Yeah.
right? So
It's a big step. It's great. Being in nature, being conscious, mindfulness, walking in the park. That's a great idea. If I identify my coping strategies as, for example, sleeping too much during the day, or just, going through the Instagram the whole day, it's because I want to avoid the stress. Yeah, I want to don't feel anything, just have something on my mind. But if I see this on the, written down, I can change it. I see, okay, I'm doing a lot of bad stuff for me. Maybe I should try something else. And that's the point. I can try, for example, going for a walk, yeah, Drink more water, being open, being in, like, for example, connect with your friends. That's really, really important.
Even if it's just for like 30 minutes a day, right? Which also reminds me of our previous conversation with Sana. This question is mostly for Walid, but feel free to answer any of you about the time management, because also in academia we face these type of issues all the time, deadlines and time pressure from our senior supervisors or things like that. So being able to manage your time efficiently is very important, and sometimes we're totally lacking the resources for it. So could you share any strategies or any tips on this?
Sure. I mean, you know, this is part of the story of my life because I think everybody is dealing with a lot of items on your calendar, meetings, you know, like stuff, forming new habits, stress management, all these. We are living in a time where time management, I would consider, is becoming more and more of one of the key drivers of success. And, you know, me as a leadership coach, what I always teach my people is three things in general. And the first thing is clarity. It's really about clarity. Like, you know, if you need to have clarity, you need to understand what are you prioritizing, because we all have the same 24 hours a day, right? It doesn't matter if you're a manager owning like a $10 billion company or a simple student starting to do something. We all share the same. So clarity is one thing. And there's a nice TED talk about it, which I can really recommend you. It's called The 5 Hindrances of Self-Mastery. It's really like a good TED talk. It gave me like an idea of how clarity actually should be defined in our mind. The other thing is, and also, you know, like when it comes to clarity, there's even some interesting religious concepts. When you look at like Buddhism or Sufi Islam, you know, there's like really interesting about clarity, which are astonishingly well connected to science. The second thing I think is really, really important when it comes to time management is having a system of how to manage your time. And there is a really nice book which I would like to recommend you. It's called the Zen to Done from Leo Babauta. And it's basically about forming the 10 habits of getting things done. There's another book from Dave Allen, I think it's called Getting Things Done, but this is more on the theory. And this book, Zen to Done, is really, really, it's about collecting, processing, planning, organizing stuff, and to really focus on simplicity so that you get stuff done. And the other two things which I would like to share with you is there's a simple life hack actually. And you know, if you have a 1 hour meeting, or if you have a lot of 1 hour meetings, try to short them down into 50 minutes. And if you have 6 meetings a day, you save 1 hour a day already. The same you can do with 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes. So this is one life hack you can easily apply to every day's needs. And the last thing, and I'm really, really clear with that. And, you know, this is something you need to have like a straight line with yourself. I started actually realizing that I started to, at some point, accepting all the meetings my manager or people will tell me, right? So then I started rejecting meetings by answering simply 3 questions to the people which invite me to meetings. The first one is, what's the desired goal or output? The second one is, what's the agenda? And the third one is, what do you expect from me? And if none of these questions are not answered to me, I simply am not attending this meeting. Because if there's no value from my time, why should I invest my time into it, right? So this is something you need to answer yourself. If you just want to be in that meeting and wasting 1 hour time, or you could have invested this precious time for yourself, you know, I don't know, doing self-mastery or forming new habits or whatever. So really, really try to sit down and think about that, because, you know, as Gary Vee started, you know, one very, very hard question. There was one lady stopping him on a car and telling him, Gary, can you please tell me 3 words which motivate me? And the words were, we're gonna die. You know, it sounds really hard, but just try to think of what he's trying to tell you. And it means that time is limited and you need to really make good time planning if you have goals. It's really simple actually, but you need to think about it.
Absolutely, fantastic. So you talked about like, how we have to sort of pick our battles, right? Also in terms of time management, like, either shorten or look at exactly the activity that has to be meaningful, and also learn how to say no, I believe. Now, there are, of course, sometimes responsibilities you cannot say no to. And one of them, like, especially like, Sana, if you would talk about it, that would be great, because, you're a mother, you're also like, having a very dynamic professional life. And especially now when, the parents and children, they're home officing, homeschooling, doing all of these things together. I think the boundaries, in which you could escape your sort of stresses at home to go to office, and like, escape from the stresses in the office to come back home, that is not there anymore. So do you offer any hacks, any tips on how to deal with these responsibilities, which sometimes are even more burdensome than the actual job stress?
Yes, that's actually one of the questions that I feel very strongly and passionately about. And like you brought up the fact that I'm a mother, and going back to last year, which was the beginning of the global pandemic, and it was a very dark and difficult time for everybody around the world, regardless to say. I can speak for it about it personally for myself. It became even harder because I am a mother to 3 children, and they were suddenly out of school, and there was no clarity as to when school would start or they would go back to school. I was in the middle of finishing my master's degree, and that came to a halt, and I had no idea when that would resume. And I was looking forward to that year being really full of opportunities, starting my own thing, doing all sorts of things. And it all kind of colluded together, and we found ourselves under one roof in our house where my children were there, and they were there with me all the time. And that's something as parents, and these were extraordinary times, because as parents, yes, you have your children around you, but then there's a routine. And there came a time when they were around all the time, and you had to work, and you had to finish your thesis, or I had to finish my thesis. I had to manage all of that. And it was very overwhelming. But like Walid just mentioned, and I'm a big believer of that, starting from, again, the point of stress management, you really have to kind of eventually sit down with yourself, become mindful and aware of what it is that's stressing you. Like I said, I'm a big, I love to journal. It's very therapeutic for me. So put down the challenges. What is it that's triggering your stress? For me at that time, it was how should I divide my time between myself, my commitments, my professional, academic commitments, and my children's? And I had no choice but to manage my time. And this is last year when time management for me became a discipline that I was literally like forced to incorporate and hold on to in my life. And then I saw the magic and the wonders of it. So, for example, schools finally began, and I decided, I journaled it, and I scheduled my time. And I said my day would begin with me waking up with the kids, having breakfast with them, put them on their gadgets, which, by the way, was very new for my 6-year-old, for example. She wasn't used to using a laptop or an iPad or typing. So I had to do all of that. And finally, making a schedule and managing my time and prioritizing. And I decided that it's really from the time that they get to school and they finish school, that I'm going to be doing my own work. And then once they finish, I will be having lunch with them. Now, we were in a lockdown situation, and of course, it was a very stressful time. There was a lot of fear. You were watching last year. It was not, we've still become more comfortable with the COVID-19 virus, and thankfully, we have the vaccine. Things are getting better. But if you go back to last year, you see all these visuals on social media and TV channels about deaths, and how it's inescapable. And it was really, really something very scary. But eventually, you decide that your external circumstances are not in your control, and then you can only worry about them to a degree. You cannot obsess and keep obsessing over how to control the external environment. What you can control is your response and your reaction to it, and that brings you clarity, which Walid was talking about. Again, I want to talk about that a human mind is very well and positively responsive towards clarity, because we do not like that sense of uncertainty. And what the pandemic did for us was put us in a sense of uncertainty, and that's chaotic for our psyche. So if you bring having brought that clarity and just going like, okay, I cannot control the virus, I cannot control what's happening outside, I'm going to control what's happening inside with my children, myself. I'm going to create this healthy routine. I'm going to sink in whatever I can, my quality time with my kids. So for example, I wanted to exercise, and I want to bring this up. What I started doing, and I wanted to meditate because I wanted to calm myself down. So what I started doing was that I could not get away from my children, and I didn't want to, because in those extraordinary times, I think the pandemic was also, it gave me a gift as a mother, because there was no other way that I would have been able to spend all my time for so many months with my children. And I really partnered with them and got to know them. And I really cherished those times, although they were really scary, dark times, but this was the good side of it. But I would at 4 o'clock, invite my children and tell them, okay, we're going to turn off the lights, turn on some meditation music, hold our hands, lie down on our yoga mats. And they were really excited. This is something that they weren't doing and I never made them do, but, I had no choice. So made them do it with me. Then, in the evenings, I wanted to exercise. So I would go out in the garden with them and I would just go like, okay, fine. You know what? All three of you stand next to each other. Let's see who can do most jumping jacks. And I would be working out with them. So it was really about, and it became a fun activity. At the same time, I was able to do the to-dos that I wanted to do, the things that are really important for me, which was bonding with my children, getting in some me time, meditating, exercise, but I was incorporating it with them. So at the end of the day, I want to just say that if you want to manage stress in your life, in any situation, and we can't control our stressors, there are unprecedented events, unplanned for, travesties that can happen. The one key thing is to manage your time and to really transform, negative events and try transforming and shifting them towards some degree of positivity. So that's what I have to say. That's how I spent my pandemic. It was, it's been a memorable time that I will not forget. But for me, time management was key, and being very mindful of what my priorities were. My priorities were my children, my work, my health, and their health. And then coming up with a schedule, and that you can only do if you're journaling, whether you're doing it online or your calendar. I love to write, so I do it manually on my diary. I literally put everything down, and you have clarity as to what your next day is going to be. And to hell with the pandemic and the coronavirus and whatever, you're at home, you're safe, and you're grateful.
Great, excellent. That's a very, I would say, important insight, and I really like your strategy. In which, well, actually, it's not even a strategy. Perhaps, that's something which you just learned how to, do things together with your children, in your community, and that way you can always find a way to bond even, in adversity. Now in academia,
I'd like to add that also, it was last year in the pandemic when my academics halted and my children were at home, and I felt myself academically and intellectually stagnating. There was this drive for creativity and helping the community. And this is when I would love to mention this, that me and my co-founders, we birthed the idea of the Norn Way. So it was created in the middle of the pandemic. And we wanted to reach out to people and help them and guide them and share our experiences with them as to how we're dealing with it, and ask other people as to what they're going through as well.
Wonderful. And I mean, I definitely love this kind of thought process and approach. Now, unfortunately, in academia, we don't always see this kind of collaborative and kind of unanimous atmosphere, because academia inherently can be quite competitive, and you're competing for grants, you're competing, to be the first one to make a discovery, and it can tend to get quite malignant sometimes. Now, it's also important to be a person who is competitive and who likes challenges and who likes to achieve, because that can somehow serve as your biggest motivation to succeed. But then you don't want things to get overly competitive and malignant as well. So again, I'm throwing in a very tough question to you, Walid. Is there a way we can find a balance in which you could be competitive, but somehow you're not comparing yourself to others and progressing in in a balanced way?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough question, actually, because it depends a lot on how you see it from which perspective. But I think to sum it up, or to make it even easier for people understanding, I think it's all about removing distractions and knowing who you are. because if you start to watch all these Instagram, Facebook, and all these social media stuff, of course you're putting a picture on you and putting a like expectation which is not reality. And I think this is one thing you can do in order to stop loneliness. The other thing is accepting the fact that when you want to be successful, like, don't be in front of stop comparing yourself to anybody, because you are an individual, you have your own, and you are unique. This is like, try to understand yourself from that. On the other thing, and I think this is also really interesting to give you like a switch into a totally different environment. Like, ask yourself, like, did you know that Lamborghini, for example, is running no TV ads? And do you know the reason for that? Simply because the people who buy a Lamborghini are not sitting in front of TVs. They are busy working, right? So it's all a question of where you see yourself. And in the end, it's up to you. I mean, you're in the driver's seat. You should know your worth and ask yourself, like, what is it that makes you wake up every morning and go to university or to the lab or to the startup? Like, try to connect with your inner why. What is it? What keeps you driving every day? Like, is it that thing that happened in your past, this emotional thing, whatever? There's a really nice book from Simon Sinek which called Start with Why, and it's a really fantastic book if you really want to understand who you are and what is driving you. Because in the end, in a psychological meaning, people will not buy what you do, but why you do it. And I think this is really important. So you need to understand and ask yourself, like, if you want to be part of someone else's dream or build your own. And I think, the crazy part about that is the only moment you actually write history and build future is the now, right? So you need to really stop comparing yourself and really focus on yourself and just do it.
That's really great advice. However, sometimes this obsessive, almost intrusive thoughts and negative thoughts. Maybe Paulina has some insight on this. We can we stop them somehow? Like, can we, or fight them, if anything? Because maybe stop them is not the right term, but fight them somehow. Could we like counteract these negative thoughts with some particular thing? Maybe as Walid was saying, to be very aware of what your worth is, maybe writing it down. I don't know.
Yeah, I think trying to stop your mind from giving you thoughts or try to fight your mind is really not a good idea, because it's useless. Your mind won't be listening to you. He will be like telling you, oh yeah, all those negative thoughts, yeah, they automatically given to you by your mind. Yeah. And what we are doing in acceptance and commitment therapy, we say, okay, we have this technique called diffusion, because when you're close to your thoughts, when you start to listen to your words in your brain, in your mind, really carefully, it becomes the point that you start believing in what your mind's saying to you, that you are stupid, that you are worthless, and all the things happening in your mind, you're getting the fusion with it, and you're fused, and you're like, oh yeah, that's true. My mind is telling me the truth, and that's not true. Those are just words, sentences that are automatically happening in your brain, in your mind. And what we can do, we can build, like the fusion that let us separate from our mind. And okay, our mind will be still calling us names, giving us those, rules that we have to obey, but still we can be commitment in our values, in the things that are valuable for us. And we can like use the metaphor of like TV that is turned on during the party. Imagine this: you are in the party, there are lots of your friends, they're all having fun, talking to each other, And in like on TV, there is a well-known movie. For example, the last scene of the Titanic. It's really sad movie. Yes, sad scene. And you know this movie really well. You know all the monologues by your heart. And imagine you're in this party, the TV is turned on, you can hear what's happening in the movie, and you're trying to talk with your friends. And you are able to do things, to talk with your friends, to eat some good, I don't know, yeah, chips, and still listen, like in the background, hear in the background those, I don't know, monologues, yeah, from the movie. And we're choosing, because I can sit on the couch, miss the whole party, miss talking to my friends, sit and just focus on watching the movie. Yeah, again and again. Okay, I know that DiCaprio will die. Yeah, but again, again. Yeah, crying, feeling sorry. Yeah, like, oh no. And I will miss the whole fun that's going on. Yeah, next to me. Or I can still hear the movie, but get connected with my friends, dance, have fun. And that's the same with our mind. Our thoughts that are made in our mind, it's talking and talking and talking, and our mind is talking like sometimes 24 hours a day. And we can decide if we want to listen to it carefully, focused on it, and be close to our thoughts, or, okay, I hear it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, okay. And keep moving forward. Yeah, doing other stuff. Because let's see, you can still have thoughts or think about something and cook a dinner. Yeah, that's normal. And you can also focus on being connected to your values and more valuable things than just, okay, but cooking is valuable, yeah, but also other things like being connected with your friends, being like connected with yourself, and still hear this radio going on like, oh, Paulina, no, stop it. No, you can't do such things. And, if we start to fight with this, we're getting closer. Yeah, it's like, don't think of the pink elephant. Don't think of the pink elephant. Don't think of the pink elephant. And right now, everyone is like imagining a pink elephant in their brain. Yeah, and that's the point. Don't tell yourself to don't think about something, because you're getting closer to this rule, and try to focus on something else. And again, that's the technique like the fusion. You have to train it every day. And again, we start from identification. Identify what's going on in your mind. Okay, and you can again write down your thoughts. I know it again, it's oh, why? But it's really, really important to write down everything, to have it like written down and see the whole point of what's going on. You can write down your negative, intrusive thoughts. And then, I don't know, you can name, the part of your brain that it comes from. For example, oh, thank you, Brian, for those thoughts that I'm not able to, I don't know, cope with the stress during exam, but that's really not useful right now. Yeah, that's useless. So, okay. And, it's like, also using your humor, yeah, like, okay, yes, of course I can. I will show you I can, yeah. But being conscious of what's going on, you can like name it. You can identify. My mind is giving me now the thought that I'm not good enough. And look at the difference. When I'm telling myself I'm not good enough, that's the negative self-talk. And when I'm giving myself the speech like, okay, my mind is having like now this thought that I'm maybe not good enough. It's like keeping the distance, yeah, from your thought. And it's just sentence, it's just words.
Like
Nothing
It's
more,
very
nothing
interesting
less.
what you're saying, because I can just underline that there is a study like which was published in Switzerland, and they asked about, I think it was 1,000 employees or more, about the people who are afraid to lose their job. And it turned out that the study revealed that people who are afraid of losing their job actually lost their job. So it proves, this, if you really think that you will lose your job, you will lose your job simply because your mind keeps hooking you into these negative thoughts. But if you have positive thoughts, as Paulina mentioned, you will, focus on good stuff and evolve and move on. So I think it's a very, very important point.
yeah, I've heard, if I remember correctly, that this term of stating positive thoughts is called manifestation. Maybe I'm not sure if I'm right here, but
So since Walid mentioned some amazing books to read on your question about obsessive compulsive thoughts and intrusive thoughts and how to kind of settle and rest your mind, there is a great book that I would recommend called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and that's pretty much what he talks about in his book. And another way of addressing, because I'm someone who's an overthinker as well, and I tend to get anxiety and I obsess over thoughts. But this was very ever since I started incorporating meditation into my life and focusing on my breathing, especially when I'm in that state where I cannot stop thinking and obsessing over a problem or over a situation or over what somebody said or how I'm feeling. Feeling about an interaction and I'm stuck in that loop of negative obsessive thinking. It's very important. And that's where mindfulness comes again, that you become mindful of that state and you learn to take a step out of that state of your own self. And there's a connection between the mind and the body. It is your mind that's generating the obsessive compulsive intrusive thoughts, and the art of meditation and the whole discipline and the beauty of meditation is to kind of transcend your mind and go beyond it and not let it affect your body the way you're feeling. So one way to deal with it is to incorporate meditation and breathing into your life. And if you're feeling like that compulsive obsessive intrusive loopy thoughts, try doing that. This book is amazing. Yeah, I think that's greatly helped me. And another thing, when it comes to journaling, if it's important to deconstruct your thoughts, because usually we all have our patterns, and we have patterns, we have triggers, and then we have patterns of certain emotions, certain reactions, certain responses, and we all have our own individual specific patterns. So if you actually write down your triggers or your thoughts and you deconstruct them and you ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling? And how can I change that? If you ask yourself these three questions, your mind automatically starts coming up with solutions which are positive. So it's in your mind that's bringing up and manifesting the negative thoughts, but it's your mind that will then counter it and give you solutions, positive solutions. And you will have more clarity on your own mind and who you are as a person and what triggers you and how you can avoid getting into that pattern.
That's great.
Yeah.
I
And
think I
oh,
think
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead. I think we have very little time left, so I just wanted to maybe ask one last question, but
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
we can maybe elaborate a little bit later. So this was last question for Walid, because it puts a little bit the focus out of ourselves and being aware of our problems, and a little bit more about a little bit more on team leaders, right, in the context of the work environment. Um, is there any way that team leaders can tailor like their approach to each of their employees to maybe like help them with this type of issues? Do you have any tips on this?
Absolutely. I mean, and for me, a quality leader is like 80% listening and 20% talking, first of all. So really, really be very close to the people you manage and try to listen. And by listen, I'm not just meaning like listening, like what they are saying, like observing, because observing is a very powerful tool. Start to write down and start to draw, like we do this in a lot of workshops. And the ultimate goal of this is to actually build trust, because you need to build trust. And if you want to have a high performance team, you know, the key ingredients of being a leader and making like high performance teams or having people who perform is psychological safety. So psychological safety is a room where you have respect, a culture of failure, appreciation, right? So it all comes back to the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is scanning the environment for psychological threats constantly, right? So what I do when I deal with teams is I do one-to-one meetings. And I do this like once a week. I have like one day, it's mostly Thursdays, where I put a free time, like 3 hours, so that anybody who wants to talk to me can come to me. And I ask them just like 4 questions. And these questions are like, how are you really feeling? And I'm emphasizing really, because it's signalizing that I am asking you that I care about how you feel. The second thing is that you ask, where can I help? Not how can I help, but where can I help? Because this addresses specifically to the problem he has. Maybe he's shy, maybe he's anxious about something, maybe he has, everybody has his bucket to wear. And the other thing is also that, what can I do in order to help you get that stuff done, right? So like, what's my contribution? And if it's just like removing this impediment, or I don't know, talk to the manager or do something, because, building trust is one of the key drivers when it comes to reducing stress, because if you know that you have someone you can count on, it means you're more relaxed because you can be open, you have help, etc. So as a leader, for me, it's really, really important that you actually foster a culture of trust, because ultimately this is what high performance teams are made of. And maybe also what you can do in the last question is, you can ask him like, do you want to say something to the team? Because some people are afraid of actually addressing things who might be crucial for the team environment, for the culture, but they don't have the position or the standing or even the guts to open up. And so I'll give you one simple example. I was in a startup like 6 years ago, and there was this very shy, introverted nerd who always came late. He didn't talk to everybody, and everybody saw him like as an outlaw. And then like the team started to ask me like, why is he constantly coming late? Why is he like allowed to come late? And then I said, okay, I'll solve the problem. I tried to talk to him. So we had lunch together. Turned out this guy has a sick mother, and he needed to wait every day until 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning until the nurse is coming to deal with his mom, right? And I thought, wow, so it's such a human basic problem we have all, right? And then I started talking about that and asking him if I may address this to the team, because I think that's a very, very valid point, and to remove pressure from you. And the moment I did that, actually he was changing, really changing in terms of being part of a team, feeling included, feeling trustworthy, not being addressed as this nerd. So you as a leader, you are playing a very, very big role when it comes to culture.
Okay, brilliant. That's actually definitely very good advice for me and other group leaders who are dealing with academics in their early career, like master students, PhD students, and postdocs. So actually, I'm going to start my next lab meeting with these 4 questions. And the kind of relationship I have with my team, I'm a little afraid that when I say, where can I help? They could say, organize me a trip to Bahamas. So
everywhere.
I hope it doesn't happen like that. But thanks a lot, like Willie, Paulina, Sarah, Sana, sorry, for like, this amazing insight and like some very hands-on hacks and tips which we all can follow. So we are actually like a little bit like, we went overboard with the time, but I still would like, if you guys would like to add something like, very briefly at the end, the stage is yours. So we can start with Paulina, then Sana.
Yeah, lately I discovered a really good page. I will send it to you via chat.
I think we lost the connection a little bit again with Paulina.
Helps me.
We got the link, yes.
Oh, yes.
Hello?
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening. I'm back. So I was saying I discovered this really good page that helps me, yeah, with time management, and also helps me being mindful and conscious, because there you have really nice music. You have this site, the view, for example, of the, I don't know, ocean. Also, you have the built-in timer for the Pomodoro technique, so you can, like, take care of your breaks, and it really helpful. Like, now, if you want to, I love this page.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Paulina. Sana, would you like to briefly say something?
Yes, I think as a parting message, just summarize pretty much what we all, agreed to. The key message that I would leave everybody with, myself as well included, is manage your time, and you can really manage your stress a lot better. And that would bring clarity, remove uncertainty, and try incorporating mindfulness, meditation, and any form of exercise in your life, and you'll see the change.
Absolutely. Walid.
Actually, for me, really, what helped me a lot is is clarity. Seriously, clarity. Like, walking in the forest like 4 hours with yourself is really like some eye opener, and it really helps you to realize where am I. Set like clear goals, and then just to clear your mind, literally. Um, the other thing I would like to share with you is, actually, we are looking for PhD students in behavioral psychology to develop studies for performance metrics at work and recruiting. So feel free, please, to email me and to connect with me on LinkedIn. I just posted it. And so you can, and then we can talk about it. So I'm really looking forward to have some nice PhD people there.
Okay, wonderful. And again, like, I think it's very important that these things are studied, like, in a proper academic and scientific way. So really appreciate you for that. Again, thanks a lot, like Paulina, Sana, Walid, for this wonderful insight. Thanks a lot to all the participants. So as Paloma mentioned at the beginning, this is the very first 6C seminar, but we'll continue with that. We'll definitely have, like, also more sessions about stress management, but also relevant topics like trauma healing, etc. And I definitely would also get in touch with you again, Walid, Paulina, and Sana. I would just like to end with a quote from Hafiz of Shiraz, which I really like, and I think it pretty much also sums up, like, all the different things we discussed today. And the quote goes like this, so of course it's in Persian, but the translation is a bit like this, that when you feel alone and only see darkness around you, do not forget that the light might be inside of you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is really beautiful. And I'd just like to add, thank you for having me on this wonderful seminar, and with such wonderful, amazing, talented panelists. And, this was an honor being here, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will put it in my journal of the gratitude.
Definitely. All right. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.